There's a special circumstances, but I guarantee they will.
Right. I don't know. Should I gave it to you?
What do you think? Keep this on time and under budget, right? All right, folks. Want to make sure I'm being respectful of everybody's time, and I know we got 60 minutes, so someone can hit the timer now, and we'll get ready to go. So I want to take 1 second first to thank Board of School Committee Turner,
hello,
who is here, your school board member. Hey, Randy. Well, we're calling in the big guns, Vice Chairman O'Connell on the school board, and your Alderman, Chris Morgan. So I appreciate everybody coming out. As you'll remember, this was where I came for my first town hall. I don't even know that the ink was dry on the paperwork after me getting sworn in, but Ward 1 is a special place in my heart because this was the first town hall I did. So we've been in office just over a year, and I wanted to start with just a few quick updates on what we accomplished in the year, talk about a couple things that are coming before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen over the last couple weeks, and then just to open it up to questions. As you'll remember, who was here the first time? Yeah, okay, all right, so you guys all remember. I like to keep this really informal, really would just rather have a conversation. I don't just want to talk at everybody. So a few things. One of the primary initiatives that we had, one of the central thrusts of our first year in office was on homelessness. And so I want to provide a few quick updates on that. As I've long said, I'm sure you've all heard me say it 1,000 times at this point, but I believe that homelessness should be rare, brief, and one time. And that we've got to tackle this in a comprehensive way, which includes enforcement, addressing the underlying challenges of homelessness, and then on the housing end as well. So that's what we did. In the first year, we implemented 15 different initiatives to address homelessness. So on the enforcement side, we banned camping in the city of Manchester. We gave the police department, no, I should have told you guys to silence your cell phones, and here I am. So we gave the police department an extra $500,000 as well to patrol the hotspots in the city of Manchester. So particularly that downtown area was where we wanted to start, around Veterans Park, Victory Park, Families in Transition, because we want to make sure that our streets are safe, clean, and inviting for individuals within the city. But we also have to recognize that we have to address the underlying drivers. We can't just arrest our way out of this challenge, and certainly that's not a good suggestion and wouldn't be successful anyways. We have to address those underlying drivers. So through the Engagement Center, I think we've seen a great deal of successes over the last 12 months, and particularly within the last 6 months when we started releasing our monthly updates, we had a lot of really great successes that we can share. Over 35 individuals were housed between July 1 and the end of the year. Over 800 provider connections were made, so looking at getting people connected to substance use disorder services, mental health services. 11 individuals got employed in that time period. Over 30 personal identifying documents were given, so like social security card, birth certificate, driver's license. Those are some real prohibitive barriers that individuals have to get into housing, to get jobs, to get access to education. So we wanted to make sure we were addressing that barrier, removing it so that an individual can move on and get into sustainable housing, which leads me to the last piece. Affordable housing, as we all know, in not just the city of Manchester, but in the state of New Hampshire and across the country, is a massive challenge. So Manchester really wanted to take that head on. So in the late spring timeframe, we released our zoning rewrite. So only 4 times in the history of the city of Manchester have we rewritten our zoning ordinances. Only this would be the first time we rewrite the zoning ordinances in the last 23 years. So this is a generational opportunity for the city of Manchester to add more housing into the city. So over the summer, we went on a 12 town hall style meeting, 1 in every ward. I'm sure you'll remember. I think we had, it was over 120 or so. Actually, Andy, it was over 120, 140 for the Ward 1. Absolutely incredible. So the The planning board, with the nominees that we had, and through with our planning community development department, with our planning board nominees, with our zoning board nominee, with my appointees to a commission of sorts, are going through all of the suggestions that you all had offered throughout those 12 town halls. We're taking them in, we're figuring out what works, what doesn't work. We'll release a second draft on that for hopeful consideration before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen at some point this year. But to me, this is a massive priority for the time that I have this year. And additionally, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen used its 79E to grant additional housing at Lamont Hanley. That was a big effort that we did. 14 of those units are going to be affordable. And we sold 15 pieces of property here in the city of Manchester that we had determined were, that were vacant, that we had determined we no longer had use for. We deemed them surplus. We sold them at auction, raised $1.13 million, with 100% of that net proceeds going into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Now, the beauty of that was we were able to take $200,000 out of that and give it to a nonprofit that created 8 units of affordable housing, so at $800 a month for women who were previously unhoused. So that was an example where from start to finish in just 8 months, we had set an initiative. I had talked about this in my State of the City address, and I talked about it in my inaugural. Hey, Gus Thrum with everybody, for anybody who knows another VIP. So I talked about this in my State of the City, that I wanted to deem these lands land surplus. So in 8 months, we took that, deemed it surplus, put it into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and then appropriated $200,000 to get women help who had previously been unhoused. And then the last piece on homelessness is in September, we launched an initiative with Harbor Care to effectively end veterans homelessness in the city of Manchester. At the time when we launched, there were 47 unhoused veterans here within our city limits. In that 4 months since, we've housed 28 of those 47. So making tremendous progress. And this is what I think, if I were to be asked, what is the future of addressing homelessness in the city of Manchester look like? One of the things that I would say is, pick a round number, if I say it, it's going to be gospel, right? Pick a round number that we have for the unhoused community here in the city of Manchester. It is going to be much better for us if we start attacking this in smaller slices, because each individual subset, whether it's seniors, children, individuals with SUDs or mental health, we have to address each of these populations differently. So for me, that's one of the areas of focus that I'm going to have, is I want to break these down into manageable bite-sized pieces, like the successes we're seeing with veterans. On addiction, overdoses fell by 24% in 2024 over 2023. Overdose fatalities fell by 21% in 24 over 23. So making really great progress on that, which again is one of the underlying drivers of homelessness. Just a couple other quick things, and then I can talk about what's going on in the BMA. One of the things that we have talked about and that we heard directly from people all throughout the city over the course of my town halls is cleanliness in the city of Manchester. Whether it's in the downtown or on the rail trails, we've got to address the trash and make this place more inviting. So we brought on a team called Street Plus. They're the ambassadors that you saw over the summertime with the blue vests who were out there picking up trash. So in the 3.5 months, 4 months that they were in operation, just in the downtown area, they picked up over 38,000 pounds of trash. They picked up hundreds of needles. They removed hundreds of pieces of graffiti on the sides of our buildings. And then we worked with the Department of Public Works, with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, to say, we want to do Saturday pickups around the city, particularly around our rail trails, because there were Alderman Burkish down in 9 had been talking about this, and several others, that there was trash and refuse around our rail trails or around the city in specific areas. So in the Saturday cleanings that they had, pickups that they had, over 300,000 pounds of trash were picked up all around the city. So to me, this is us being responsive to one of the primary concerns that we had heard, and we're going to make sure that we keep that going into the future. So a couple things, couple things came before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. We took a vote a couple weeks ago on sewer rates within the city. Everybody see that? I want to provide a little bit of background on what the deal was with that. For decades, we've known that we need to update our sewer pipes in the city of Manchester. The challenge that we've been running into is every single year, 280 million gallons of raw sewage are dumped into the Merrimack River. That is clearly an environmental hazard. I did a town hall in Ward 5, and what they were telling me is that for years, every time it rains, not a 100-year flood, not any kind of significant multi-day rain, but every time it rains, they have sewage backing up into their basements, raw sewage backing up into their basements, human waste backing up, coming out of the manhole covers. Obviously, that's a disgrace, and it's disgusting. So in 2020, the city of Manchester entered into a consent decree. 6 others along the Merrimack River are also in the same kind of consent decree, basically saying to the federal government that we are going to update our sewers in our city. So in the city of Manchester, we have 400 miles of sewer pipes here. 100 of those 400 miles are over 100 years old. So imagine what the city of Manchester looked like 100 years ago and what it looks like now. Right? Obviously, we have significantly more population, significant more businesses, puts a huge stress on pipes that were not built to contain this. In that interim 4-year period, the department, let me back up one sec. So this is an unfunded mandate from the federal government. So the federal government came in, we signed this consent decree saying we were going to upgrade these pipes, but there's no dollars attached to it from the federal government. They just said, you're breaking the law and you've got to fix this, right? So there are no dollars coming from the feds. Our Department of Public Works worked with our congressional delegation, who were very responsive on this, to identify congressionally directed spending, fancy euphemism for earmarks, for those of us who remember what earmarks were back in the day, but worked with the federal delegation to try and identify federal spending that we could use for this. They worked with the state of New Hampshire to try and identify funding that they could get to help offset the costs. None of those avenues were successful. Not to suggest that we couldn't go out and attempt to get more or attempt to get some federal dollars into the future. But the challenge that we have is because we are under a consent decree, any delays can start to warrant fines. And as we all know, things don't get cheaper to build into the future. And if we start getting fined, those fines compound each other and they get exponentially more expensive. So the vote that was before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, unfortunately, the way to pay for this project is through user fees. So that's why you guys saw in the paper that there's going to be an increase in user fees. It's to pay for this gargantuan CSO Cemetery Brook Tunnel project, which is really going to be amazing and it's going to alleviate a lot of the problems that we have in the city as it pertains to sewage. But I wanted to talk through that a little bit because obviously that number was eye-popping in the newspaper, and I wanted to have the opportunity to address it. And then on the Beach Street School, so as you'll recall, in November, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen took a vote on the Beach Street School to do basically what is a land swap. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with this. I know some are very familiar with it as well. We took a vote on making a land swap for the Beach Street School. Where there's currently a school, there'll be a park. Where there's currently a park, there'll be a school. So that's basically effectively the vote we took. At the time, we didn't have, I didn't feel that we had, there were a number of questions that were raised that I wanted to get answers to before we move forward on that. And so in that ensuing time period, I've been doing exactly what I said I was going to do at the end of that Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. I voted no at the time on moving forward. So what I said at the time, though, is I wanted to collect more information from the superintendent, the district, the BOSC, the BMA, and make sure we were getting all of our questions answered. So we put together a document, and the superintendent sent that document to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen on Monday to make sure that they had all of the information and had answers to the questions, basically answers to the test, right? So now we're in a position where we're divining which way to go forward. So that's the update that I have on that as of now. But as I promised then and would promise now, we're continuing to work through it. We're getting our questions answered. We're making sure that for a project of this size, $290 million was the bond that was taking out. I think it's important that we make sure we do all of our due diligence and then come to a resolution in the end where, you know, even if we may not agree on every piece of it, at least we've had the questions answered and at least we all feel like we're comfortable moving forward. All right, what did I do that in? All right, about 12 minutes. All right, that's not too bad. A year condensed. Am I done? All right, thanks all for coming out tonight. I would love to open it up to any questions you all have. Yes, ma'am?
Would you be replacing the 100 miles old, or all of it?
Nope. So really great question. So if you go on our website, actually this was pretty cool. The Department of Public Works came to me and said, hey, we've built this great video that outlines the entirety of this project. It's about a 6-minute video, and we would love for you to narrate it. And I said, well, everybody hates the sound of their own voice, right? So I went in and I narrated it. But so if you go onto our website, you can watch a 6-minute video on the project. But effectively what it is, it's 2.2 miles from the Merrimack River out to basically where I live on, like in that, you know, the abandoned CVS? The empty CVS right along the Rockingham Rail Trail, that's where it goes out to. So it's about 2.2 miles of sewer, but then it opens up and collects sewer runoff from other pipes they're going to connect to it. Yeah, but there's a really great video on it. It's the largest public works project in the history of the city of Manchester.
So it's the
Yes,
whole
sir.
thing, the old and the new pipes, is that what you're saying?
Correct, yeah. And I'm not an engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but if you watch the video, they really go into great depth and detail on what they're going to be doing with this, the massive size of the pipe, why they chose the route that they did to have as minimal disruption on our public, you know, everyday life. It's really an impressive engineering feat.
How do you access this video?
If you go into manchesternh.gov, and it'll be on the Department of Public Works website as well. Yes, sir.
So we're a major polluter still of the Merrimack River here in Manchester.
Until we get it fixed. Yeah, 280 million gallons of sewage every year. Yeah, but that's what we're seeking to fix through this. There's a recognition that obviously it has to be done. Sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Just, you know, with regard to the sewage topic, I attended a meeting last year of the Merrimack Valley Watershed body, and municipalities all up and down the Merrimack Valley are represented on that, and those meetings are on. There are public meetings on at least twice a year. But what I was shocked to hear at that meeting last year was that the largest polluter of the Merrimack Valley is the city of Manchester. It's not Lawrence, it's not Lowell, it's not Concord, it's not Nashua, it's not Haverhill, it's Manchester. 40% of the pollution in the Merrimack River comes from the city of Manchester. So I understand the pain of paying for it, but I was embarrassed, frankly, as a Manchester person sitting there with the various people from all the other cities. But so it's work that has to be done. I think the lesson here, not to be too self-serving, the lesson here is, you know, a project delayed is a project that just gets more expensive.
Yes.
Mark McKenzie is the rep in this district. The purpose of that waterway is to take all the separate the sewer from the runoff, the water runoff. That water will continue right into the Merrimack River, but it's not going to be sewerage going into the Merrimack
Correct.
River. What's happening now, as you properly explained, is every time it rains, the sewer treatment plant gets overwhelmed.
Right.
And we have to pay to treat all that as well.
Correct.
So that's costing a fair amount of money. So it'd be, in the long run, it's gonna, as you said in your video, which was very good, by the way.
Oh, so you saw it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, we did.
So when I go look at the tracker on how many people, I'll know one. Right?
No, you did a good job with that, but it's a big step forward.
Yeah.
Just terrific. The other thing I wanted to ask you that was raised in the Highway Commission was the roads. There's going to be a CIP request, I think, to invest in roads in Manchester. I think we're falling behind.
Yeah. So great question. In every one of the town halls that I did last year, roads came up, and every time I see Chris's name pop up on my phone, I hear, "Hey, we got potholes up here in one. We got to do something about this." So I've heard Chris loud and clear. I've heard the city of Manchester loud and clear. Last year we did about $5.3 million in roads, in road repair, maintenance. DPW did a presentation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen a couple weeks ago, or So yeah, sometime in December, the first or second meeting in December, and they outlined what an annual expense to maintain, just to keep pace with the degradation of our roads, is $12 million a year. I mean, that is one of two things. It's either a massive hit to the tax cap. So just for perspective's sake, last year's tax cap was 5.6%, which allowed us to spend roughly $14 million on both the city side and the school district side. That's if we spent every dollar that we could and raised taxes by 5.6%, we could have spent about $14 million. So you're talking about 12 million only going to roads. Of course, we're not gonna just spend 12 million. You can bond it, but this year in our budget, I wanna do a historic investment into our roads because clearly we are falling behind and we've got to, at the very least, keep pace with that because nobody wants to hit a pothole and have their axle blown out and it makes for an uncomfortable drive. It hurts commerce, businesses, the whole nine. Yes?
Yeah, that's what I came to talk about. I live on River Road in Jim Townsend. I've been here forever. And it's a mixed bag because the potholes are terrible. The last time, as I recall it, the city tried to make it look like they were doing a great job with the roads until gas is repaired. They do a terrible job. It doesn't last 2 years. Whatever it is, whatever company we've had, or if we do it internally. But the other thing is the average speed on my street, I'm going to stick my neck out, is between 45 and 50 miles an hour. It's a 30-mile speed limit. So those potholes, you'd think they'd slow them down. But something has got to be done to monitor and bring that speed down. There's been accidents right in my driveway, right in front of my driveway, on both sides of my house. Speed. Speed down the road.
I would have Union.
Yeah, Union, yeah.
Union and River.
There's bus stops on that road and they just fly right now.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, you're up there too. Yeah, I forgot about
There's
that.
been some bad wrecks right outside my neighborhood
Yeah.
too.
I remember,
I'm surprised there hasn't been more.
At the beginning of the year, Chris actually had brought this up as a topic. I remember having conversations about Union and Campbell. This is where we can work with DPW. When we identify these kinds of hotspots where the speed is really great and it's causing problems or, God forbid, accidents, this is where we can go to DPW and talk about a traffic study to identify what is needed here. Do we need an extra sign? Do we need one of those big signs that says, hey, you're going too flipping fast, slow down, right? Or do we talk to the police department about sending additional traffic patrol officers up there? So if you're telling me this continues to be a problem, I know Chris will be Johnny on the spot and we can reach out and work to get that resolved.
Huge.
Okay, can you write that down, Union? Yeah, okay. Yep, yes ma'am. No, that's all right, we're gonna go here, and then Bryce.
Just speaking of traffic and accident potential, getting onto 3 from the Granite Bridge, does everyone know what I'm talking about? It's a hazard. Have I got it all right, the names? Because frequently cars are going south on 3, and you're merging, and you can't merge, so you have to.
It's 293.
293.
Yeah.
It's a suicide.
It's a suicide. I mean,
Yeah.
and then people beep
It
at
shouldn't
you
be allowed
when
to
you
merge.
stop. So there needs to be a light or something. And
Yeah.
I
That's
know
getting
that-
redone, right?
So I love that you mentioned that. So I was just up at the inauguration last week for the governor, and one of the conversations that I had with both her and the executive council, John Stephen, obviously our executive counselor now, but was the need to build, or the need to have exit 6 and 7 redone. It is on the 10-year plan, but I want that on like the 1 to 3 year plan, not the 10-year. Right. So exactly. So that was one of the things we had talked about with Hackett Hill and United Therapeutics when they were looking to go up there, was like it's almost like a chicken or the egg kind of thing. If you build it, they will come. So if we were to start developing up in that area, then the state would feel hard pressed to come in and do that. But I've had these conversations with the legislature, the executive council, and the governor about trying to get that on the front end, because that would be extraordinarily beneficial to our arguments to start developing in some of these other areas, while also not doubling down on the traffic concerns that you all have. I mean, if you put 500 units in Hackett Hill, right, you're talking about 750, 1,000 cars that are all going to be up in that area utilizing those roundabouts and 293, and that is obviously not something that we want to do without expanded infrastructure opportunities there. Yeah, so we're going to go here and then Bryce, and then we'll come over to you, sir.
In regards to the roads, in November, Ray Street, where I live, from Webster up to Carpenter, they replaced the road. And they did an exemplary job.
You're welcome.
Unbelievable. I don't know if you've ever seen anybody create a road, but it's great entertainment, I have to tell you. But they worked as a team. They started on time. They ended on time. They cleaned up after themselves. They kept all the residents informed. They said they worked in all kinds of weather. It was hot, then it was pouring rain. They said they were going to finish right before Thanksgiving. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to happen. But they did. I just wanted you to know that this team that was on Ray Street did a wonderful job. And I don't know if anybody ever gets kudos for building the road, but they really should.
I appreciate that. I'll flag that. DPW loves hearing that. I mean, typically speaking, when you're in a public service job, right, nobody's calling just to say, hey, just to let you know, you did a real bang-up job the other day. I'll let them know. I appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Bryce.
Yeah, I want to sort of build on what Sam was saying, others about the roads, and it's definitely an issue, but I would hesitate to just say that more signs or more monitoring would solve it. Obviously, we have the ability to put some officers on those streets to watch, but that's expensive for the city, and also I'm sure they can be doing a lot more important work, especially downtown, trying to keep people safe. So I was wondering if you or DPW would consider embracing a sort of complete streets plan. I know that some of the regional planning commissions are looking at that, but it could be a way to not just tell people to slow down, but design the road in a way that people want to drive slower and actually do drive more safely.
Yeah. I think so. Great point. I think one of the thrusts behind that comment was we have to deal with this in a multifaceted way, and if there are better ways to do it, if there are creative ways that we could do it, be more than happy to look into it.
It would work well if you're repaving a lot of roads in the city. You might as well tackle both problems at once.
Sure. Yeah. Twofer. Yes, sir.
I have a lot of issues. One, Mayor, I can hear you clearly, but I can't hear anybody else. If we could have microphones.
Yeah, we need a microphone.
Oh, okay.
Because I can't hear people.
Okay.
Anyway, there several things. I'm concerned most about the education for our children. You know, in the state they want to have vouchers, and I don't believe in that. But if they are going to have vouchers, let's do the Beach Street schools so that people want to go to that school. You know, let's develop it. And if it was developed if this program was developed in the last administration and everything was passed and you guys met in last March.
No.
Well, that's good.
No. It's a citation level offense. I don't have, or we on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and certainly by de facto, me as mayor, I don't have the ability to criminalize anything. I can only do something on crimes that the state allows us to. And so I can't criminalize anything without going to the legislature saying, I want to do this.
Good, it just exacerbates things for those people.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to create more barriers, but I also have an obligation to ensure that our streets are safe, our parks are clean. Yeah.
Thank you.
I would like to follow through on the Beach Street School, that it seemed like everything was ready to go, and that was a profoundly important school to get moving on, and then all of a sudden it was just like a pullback. What further questions were there? I am kind of interested.
Yeah, so the questions that I heard the most from that meeting were, obviously we're in a difficult budget cycle for the state of New Hampshire, right? There was just an article in the Union Leader about that yesterday. A $21 million deficit is what they're projecting. So the concern is, this is paid for, to be clear, this is paid for by state adequacy aid. This is not paid for by city taxpayer dollars, state adequacy aid. The concern is that if we're in a difficult budget environment, is state adequacy aid going to be cut? So the members of the board had questions about that. I had questions about that. The additional questions were about things like the high school, right? So is there going to be a new high school built on that spot? And because we hadn't seen phase two, we weren't sure. Phase two came out, they did a presentation on that, and it was shown clearly that there's not going to be a high school built in that location. There were questions about parks, like things of that nature. Those questions have been resolved. But again, I would go back to what I said initially. This is a massive project, right? Priority one is $290 million bonded and paid for by the state. But it's a big project. So I don't think that it's unreasonable to say, look, we got to take a quick break on this, get our questions answered, see where the consensus is, and move forward. Yeah, this young lady in the back hasn't had a chance to ask.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's not the quickest break, right? It's been going on for a while now. I'm happy to hear that questions have been resolved, but how much longer do we expect this pause to be on hold, and do we expect any impact to the middle school projects where this board is sending kids?
Yeah. No, and soon. I mean, there's been not a single delay, but politicians don't normally keep things short, right? But I'll answer that in a quick way. Nothing has been put on pause with the middle schools, and this is the point that I've been making to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen as well when they have questions. That of that $290 million bond, 199 million of that goes to the middle schools. That's not going to be touched whatsoever. The only remaining question was on what we were going to do with that Beach Street school. So nothing has been paused on the middle school. If I'm not mistaken, that's supposed to break ground in the spring. So nothing's been paused on that. So that 199 and the 17 million on the portables, the modulars, that's already been, well, the 17 on the modulars has already been spent. That 199 hasn't been touched. There was just the remaining questions on the Beach Street school.
So basically, Mayor, what you just said, you said that the $290 million, I forget what you call it, yeah, is you don't trust the state to be able to pay for it. You think they might run out of money, yet the state just celebrated cutting the interest and dividends tax, which cuts about $160 million. Don't you think that's a little ridiculous? When we need money, resources going down, we're going to cut taxes?
I didn't say I didn't trust the state. I said I think there's legitimate questions to be asked about what is going on in a difficult budget cycle and what are they going to look to cut.
But they are committed to this $290 million, are they not?
Well, adequacy aid can change from year to year. I'm not suggesting that it will, but it can change from year to year.
Well, in other words, their word is not good because you can't trust them. That's what it seems
No,
like. Because if you just go through it.
Any year, the adequacy number can change. It's based on our total enrollment. Enrollment can go down, so adequacy aid can go down. If the state rejiggers the number or the formula, we could see reduced aid. I mean, it's happened in the past. Again, I'm not suggesting it will, but I don't think it's unreasonable to say if we're going to be spending $17.7 million on a bond annually, if we have additional questions, I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to ask.
And also, if they go through with this voucher program, you may lose more Manchester students, which therefore so it's like a vicious cycle. If you do this, people want to go to that school. To me, it's worth the investment.
I hear you.
Thank you.
Loud and clear. Yes, ma'am.
The state adequacy grant that could change, are you satisfied with the answers that you got? That what is the school board? I mean, maybe Julie could explain to us what is going to happen. How can they cover that? Maybe there's other sources that the school has.
Yeah, so
are you satisfied?
there are two different ways that we've discussed internally that it could potentially be covered. There's an expiration of a bond that paid for renovations 20 years ago. That bond expires in 2 years. There are additional trust funds that they could use to cover that gap as well. It's not my anticipation that adequacy aid will get cut.
Oh.
And when I was up at the inauguration last week, I didn't sense any appetite to go in that direction. And matter of fact, what I've seen is that under the Sununu administration, there was $200 million additional spent on adequacy aid. Yeah. So I don't think that they're immediately going to throw the car in reverse and say, we made a mistake on that and we're going to reduce spending.
Thank you, and keep advocating for our city. And to keep them from making decisions that cut the state's
Obligation.
the state's, whatever you call it, give to the city. Keep up with them.
Yeah, so budgeting is a very difficult thing. And I appreciate what the legislature is about to go through because I went through the same thing last year. When I took office, when I took office, what I was looking at was a $10.7 million deficit on the city side. And then the school board, of course, any board would be crazy not to request the entirety of the tax cap that they can ask for, right? So what I was looking at, the first one-page budget document that I got, would have, if we made no cuts anywhere, if we made no reductions anywhere, I was going to have to ask the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to override the tax cap. On a 5.6% tax cap, I was going to have to ask them to do it. So we had to cut, right? So on the city side alone, I had a 4% cost of living adjustment that I had to cover for all of our city employees, which was $6.5 million. We had massively ballooning healthcare costs that were going to cost us, or that did cost us, $2 million. Anytime you spend money to pay down the debt or to pay down the tax rate, it's called using surplus dollars to do that. So the previous administration used $1.5 million to pay down the tax rate from the year before. So I have to cover that. So, and then in addition, we had a $700,000 abatement at the Mall of New Hampshire because we had overvalued their property taxes. So $10.7 million on the city side alone. And then you add in the request from the school board, and all of a sudden I have to override the tax cap if I make no cuts anyway. I mean, I understand that some people don't have a problem paying taxes, but overriding the tax cap with a 5.6% rate when it's that high. So we made changes, and we were able to come further under the tax cap than any budget that has been passed since the inception of the tax cap. And we didn't. The one red line that I had was I was not going to gut city services.
I did, at the time of that vote, and I do respect the difficulties. I didn't agree that I thought the schools should get their full,
Thank you, Sue.
what they asked for, because I just really value education. But, and I understood that, you know, that your position, and Chris, I understood your position about taxes. But I don't understand what's behind not swapping the Sheridan Emmett Park land. I don't, it's not about taxes, like you said, it's done, it's, yes, there's a bond, but aren't there plans for paying that bond? As I understand it, that's
It's already scheduled.
taken care of.
What I would say is stay tuned. And that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen got the FAQ. Excuse me, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen got on Monday. I'm working with the aldermen and talking through, and we're devising a path forward.
All right. So then I'll be able to talk to my alderman between now and next Tuesday.
Sure, absolutely.
We keep saying we're going to get together and get you and Julie together and talk. So,
Jim, I'm going to go over here and then.
thank you very much.
Hi, since we were on the subject of the vouchers, I just wanted to let everybody know that Thursday at 1 o'clock at the State House, there's going to be a hearing. As far as I know, they say it's going to be in the Legislative Office Building behind the State House. I have a feeling it could get moved to Reps Hall, but stay tuned. You can always, I don't know, check my Facebook or something. I'll post that by Wednesday if you would like to come and speak. And I urge people to please oppose this legislation. It's really bad, and it's also, I'd say, the #1 reason, despite everything you've probably heard. You know, the money is not very accountable nor transparent as to where it's going. And if it's actually going where they say it's going. And it's also not an investment in our students and our community, and yeah, the way normally when we pay for things first, it usually is. And a lot of the money is going to pay for soccer camps, things like that, these one-time type expenses for like one child. So we need to, we can't have that accountability. It's also going to end up going down to the taxpayer level. So everybody here is going to pay for it.
That's
if this passes.
We need to advocate.
We've already been honestly paying for it or making up for that in the budget from the first time around.
Sorry that I spoke for a minute earlier without saying it. I think we should all just recognize we're in a building in a school that lost its principal this week. And I know you were at our meeting last night, you spoke eloquently about that, and we recognize the loss of that person. But I just think as a school board member here, we're in the building where the principal died in the last week, so I think it's important to remember that.
And the services are tomorrow. I'll be there. I have it on my calendar.
3 to 7 p.m. I think it's Lambert.
Yeah, Lambert Funeral Home, 3 to 7. Thank you, Jim.
Oh, Meg Canning right here. This is also the Webster principal. Jenny Lynch was on medical leave for the past year and sadly lost her battle with cancer. But this is Meg Canning, and she is here to represent our wonderful Webster students. She's doing a bang-up job. I've been interim principal for the last year and a half here, so yeah. Yeah, so hopefully, hopefully they'll keep me around.
My grandkids went to Webster. Excellent.
Wow.
Excellent.
I have a question. So changing gears to affordable housing, so that's something that I think everyone in the city cares about a great deal. And we know that the zoning rewrite is happening, and that's going to be a big conversation later this year whenever the new updated draft comes out. But I was wondering if you could talk about the Housing Commission and its future, because when I checked the city website about it recently, I saw that the members had 3-year terms that all expired on January 1st of this year. So could you just talk about what the plan is for that commission moving forward?
Yep, I've been talking to Peter about it. Yeah, to determine what the best path forward. So there's a 90-day extension. So anytime you know this, I mean, every time a term runs out, you have 90 days. So Peter and I have been talking about what the best path forward is for the commission. Does it need more seats? Does it need staggered terms? So those are the conversations he and I are having internally. I talked to Joe about it as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do you have a preference, or do you know when that might get resolved?
That's what I'm working with Peter on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we begin to talk about the Sununu project
Yeah.
or concerns or?
I was actually,
just-
so, oh boy, you want me to reveal something that I?
Of course.
But Andy's got a computer going, and so here's kind of how I envision this going forward, because that's not just a piece of property that matters to the city, it matters to the entire state of New Hampshire because it's huge. So the conversations that I've had with the state up to including last week, the trigger effect for that property to basically be reverted back to the state is when all of the individuals that are currently in there move to the new Hampstead Hospital. My understanding is that it's supposed to happen towards the end of this year. So when that happens, that's when the state takes it back over, they set up a commission. Through legislation, Manchester has a seat at that table. So what I would like to do is I would like to do a series of town halls, much like we did with the zoning rewrite, and basically go around the city and say, what should we be looking for in this parcel of land? Obviously, people up in Ward 1 are going to feel, well, I mean, even when we were at the zoning rewrite, there was a whole host of different opinions. But I think we need to come together as a city and say, here are the 7 to 10 things that we're looking for in this property. Some of the things are going to be more difficult than others, but I want to start those conversations this year so that we are prepared when we have somebody sitting at that table to say, yep, we've done the work, and here's what our homework says. We've talked to the residents, these are the kinds of things that we're looking for.
And even though we are here and the land is here, we only have one seat at the table because it's state land.
Correct.
That's a bummer. Thank you.
Isn't there another issue there, because a lot of those initial buildings over by the river that aren't used for anything are protected by a historic preservation easement, which is idiotic. And so that's got to be lifted somehow, which there's a mechanism to lift it, but it's not easy.
That's correct.
So there's all kinds of,
There are going to be a lot of interwoven pieces to this conversation.
and that's 140 acres.
Correct. Yeah. It is. Yeah. And one of the things that we talked about in the master plan was we have this amazing river here. And we have this amazing opportunity. And the comment, the statement was something like, no one does less with the amount of waterfront that we could have than the city of Manchester. So other towns that have, other municipalities that have a river like this, they utilize it for any variety of things, right? I mean, you could, the apex would be like a Tuscan village up there, which obviously the road could not support 10,000 cars, additional cars a day for something like that. But what is the hybrid up there? Is it some form of small mixed use and then huge open parklands? Is it, I know we had some conversations with folks up here, they don't want anything. They just want to have grazing land. So everybody's going to kind of see it differently, but that's where I think we have to really try and come together and if we're not able to arrive at a specific consensus, at least be able to provide some options of the things that we're looking for. Some kind of hybrid.
Well, I didn't pick up on what you said. The issue of different access into metropolitan areas and to residential roads that were used suggests that the choo-choo train is going to disappear. I mean, I know why the power plant is still getting coal once in a while. It shouldn't be open. But without the state Department of Transportation taking seriously the issue of road access from this, what will be the raw land before they put houses in, shopping centers over there. I hope that happens. Try to be having input.
This would have to be a concurrent, I mean, by definition, this would have to be a concurrent like resolution with the state of New Hampshire. But I was talking to the gentleman that started the Tuscan Village in Salem last week, and that's a 15-year project that is still, or it's been going on for 15 years, and it's still going on. I grew up in Salem, so I remember when that was the racetrack, going there when I was 8 or 9 years old with my dad. But that's a project, when we start to even consider this, that will be like 4 mayors from me by the time anything, even a stake goes into the ground, I'd imagine. Yeah, that's a long-term project that we as a city have to work very closely with the state on.
Yeah, I know we're 650, so you had talked about the budget last year, how difficult it was. Do you want to spend a minute talking about the budget that we're about to enter into?
Sure, don't.
I mean,
So
it's going to be tough, right? Like the school district got 1% last year. That's done now, but that's not sustainable year over year. So the school district budget will be presented in a few weeks from now, and we'll talk about that at that point. But I just wanted you, I'm sure you would like the opportunity to talk about the issue of employment in the city and retaining our city workers and all that other stuff that's going on.
So this is some of the balance that I see going forward as we enter into the budget season. So, I mean, as you recall, all the unions on the school district side got their new contracts, right? Was it 2 years ago and towards the end of 2023? So we did the compensation study on the city side. So we have 1,250 city employees. And the presentation that we got was that we roughly underpay our city employees by 13%. Now there are grade variations within that, but the thrust of it is we are underpaying our city employees. So the number that we saw on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen was roughly $5.6 million is what it would take to move into the new plan for the new compensation study. So obviously going back to the number that I said before, inflation continues to increase, but at a much lower rate. So our tax cap is based off of 3-year rolling CPI. So as that number drops, that means our tax cap gets lower. So our tax cap this year is not going to be 5.6%. It's going to be significantly lower than that, which means what? We're going to spend significantly less as a city, which puts a strain when we put together the budget, because if you have a big ticket item like raises for all 1,250 of your city employees, that means that some trade-offs are going to have to come into play. Now the plus side, if anybody, who are the masochists that watch the BMA meetings or Board of School Committee meetings? All right, I love it, okay. Now the plus side, if you watch the monthly reports that we get, healthcare is coming in well right now, and I'll take a moment to knock on wood, but healthcare does not look like it's going to hit the $2 million number that we saw last year. So any reduction in that means we have to spend less in healthcare increase than we did the previous year. So that would be a real boon for us. There are a couple other areas. We won't have the 4% COLA this year, so obviously the compensation study will make up for that 4% COLA. But theoretically, we should not have to deal with the abatement, that $700,000 down at the mall. So there are some bright spots to this budget. There are some difficult spots to this budget as well. Sir? I'm not raising taxes by 10%.
I don't mind. If the New Hampshire Supreme Court agrees with Conval,
Yep.
how is that going to help Manchester? How much
It
more
depends.
money-
It depends on how. It all depends on how the state wants to approach that. So it's active litigation right now, so we haven't seen a result. The comments that have been made publicly, they are looking at a couple different ways to resolve that. But I don't want to prejudge what that effort is going to be, because I don't know. I don't know how the legislature is going to do it.
Their irresponsibility is passing the burden on us. That's why we have to have high taxes for the education, because they don't do their job, in my opinion.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. We don't know what the result of that is going to be just yet. We don't know how the legislature is going to tackle it, so I don't want to prejudge the efforts of Concord before we know what it looks like.
bring our mayor.
Let's. No, you are. But let's stick with the resident. Oh no, well, when I get to your ward, you can ask all the questions. Andy is a new resident of the city of Manchester with his 2 new beautiful children as well.
Mine was more of an acknowledgement. I know many of the faces in this room are very passionate about public education, and so I just wanted to acknowledge everybody coming out tonight, making sure that, you know, you're keeping your finger on the pulse, you're staying informed, you're asking the good questions. I know, you know, the mayor and I have many conversations about the pathway forward. He knows that I hold his feet to the fire pretty much every school board meeting saying, so what is the pathway forward? I heard you say. So I'm very grateful to hear that it was a quick pause and that we are making gains and we have forward momentum. Like you said, stay tuned. I know that we had many questions about the park, you know, the park being rebuilt. According to Mark Gomez, it was going to be superior than the current park. There were questions, you had already touched upon most of these, but, you know, questions about adequacy aid. It would be illogical for the state to cut to the degree that would impact the project. The school district has other trust funds, some you already alluded to, some other funding sources so that we would be able to see this project through. And then I would encourage anyone, if they haven't seen phase 2, I know we're not quite done with phase 1, but phase 2 was revealed in December, and it does impact Webster Elementary. It is a 30-year plan, so it would be, I don't know how long you're sticking around as mayor, but it
will not be 30 years. There was a mayor that did 18.
I would encourage anyone to take a peek at phase 2. If you're not sure how to get a hold of phase 2, Jay Turner at mansd.org. I can send you the slide deck for it. It's pretty exciting. I have lived in Manchester since 2002. All 3 of my kids went to Webster. They're all at Hillside and at Central. And I am super passionate about the state of our schools, what's happening in the schools, what's happening to the buildings. I'm going to tell you tonight that, like, I won't settle for the status quo of our buildings anymore. So you can rest assured, if you agree with that, you know, and you like that, like, I'm all ears, whatever your plan is for the state of our buildings. But we've done great work on the inside, but it's time to update the outside. So I just wanted to acknowledge everybody coming out tonight, because I know personally in this neighborhood that more than one of you have reached out to me and bent my ear on what you hope for our schools. And so I'm just I feel refreshed hearing from you tonight that there is potentially a pathway forward. So thank you for that.
How about Andy takes us home?
Okay. Going back to the Cemetery Brook project, I know there was some discussion over helping the proprietors of 88 Coffee Company. Is there any updates on that?
I don't have any at this time. No, but I mean, as soon as we have,
You can move to Boardwalk. It's good coffee.
as soon as we have an update, similar to what we did in the fall, as soon as we have any update, we will make sure to make that available. Yeah. Thank you all. Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.